And the more you look into it, the more you realize that they did indeed fake the moon landing. The craziest of all, what they call a conspiracy theory, is actually true. They really did fake the moon landing. You can't have 1,000 times greater technology in 1969 than today, when they can only travel 1,000th the distance to the moon with a human on board with 5 decades better technology. So you can't have 1,000 times greater space traveling capability in 1969 than you can today, because that would mean technology is greater in the past than in the future, which is an historic and scientific impossibility. So there you prove it with logic. You can prove it with one photograph. We uncovered classified footage of fake photography of them faking being halfway to the moon right in front of your eyes that you can see for free at Sibrel.com. Two different NBC news directors agreed it proved they did not go to the moon. Okay. And then we have the deathbed confession of an eyewitness who was there, recently published in my book, Moon Man, at Sibrel.com, which is an interactive book with 16 video clips that back up everything that I say. When the film came out, a funny thing happened on the way to the moon. 4 out of 5 people who saw the movie recanted on their belief that the moon missions are real, largely for the same reason I recanted, which is we found unedited footage of them faking being halfway to the moon with a 1 foot model of the Earth dated 2 days into the flight, with a third track of audio of the CIA telling them how to fake a 4-second radio delay. I mean, that proved it to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, they really didn't go. Now with the book and the 16 supplemental clips, probably 95% of the people recant their opinion as to the authenticity of the moon landings. And that's just the sad state of our world and our government. They really did fake the moon landing. So when Orwell said, whoever controls the past controls the future, this is a perfect example of that, because the people who are controlling the past, that we went to the moon when we certainly did not, those same criminals are controlling our destiny, which means until the moon landing fraud is exposed, we will never have honest government in the United States of America, and probably not anywhere else, because we, like it or not, are the world leader in many ways, one of which is corruption. And because if the truth about the moon landing fraud comes out, the very next can of worms they're going to have to open up is the Apollo 1 fire. And then it'll be brought out that the federal government murdered their own hero astronauts to cover up the moon landing fraud. This is one of the reasons NASA is so concerned about the truth coming out, because they murdered the crew of Apollo 1 for not cooperating with the fraud, as a warning to the rest of the astronauts. So this is why they keep year after year after year defending the moon landings. I mean, if I went around, William, and saying Mickey Mouse was the first president of the United States, not George Washington, do you think there would be 100 YouTube videos saying, no, 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 Bart's wrong. Let us reassure you, George Washington was the first president, and going into great detail defending why George Washington and not Mickey Mouse was the first president. So if the moon landings are real and so obvious, anyone who says otherwise is an idiot. So why are there thousands and tens of thousands of hours of labor spent making hundreds of videos to defend the so obvious moon landings? Because they're made of straw. That's why they have to be defended. Think about this. Elon Musk, with 5 decades better technology than the Apollo equipment, tried to land a rocket vertically 5 times before doing it successfully. Mind you, he had 6 supercomputers surrounding the rocket to gimbal it to land vertically, which means it had somewhere but around 600 million times more computing power than the lunar module. 600 million times more computing power. With 5 decades better technology, to land a rocket vertically, blew up the first time, blew up the second time, blew up the third time, blew up the 4th time. So how could they land the rocket the first time vertically ever tried with 1/600 millionth the computing power back in 1969, when with 5 decades of better technology, 600 million times better computing power, they blew up the first 4 times they tried. You see, that's actually the first time a rocket ever landed vertically was Elon Musk doing it. And it took him 5 tries with 5 decades better technology. So they didn't land a rocket vertically 6 times on the moon, in 1969 and a couple years later with, untried equipment. You see that? He can't do it on land. They didn't do it on the moon. And even 5 decades later, they blew up the first 4 attempts trying to land a rocket vertically. But for some reason, with 1/600 millionth computing power, they did it in 1969 on the first attempt. How about that? Edgar Mitchell, I showed him the same footage. He turned red as a beet, got angry, and then, of course, as you know, kicked me from behind. And the part you didn't show is in that commotion of being assaulted by someone from behind, we left a wireless microphone on him, and my camera operator was a bit startled. He forgot to hit stop recording. So while the camera's in the back seat of the rental car, it's still recording. The private audio of the wireless microphone we accidentally left inside the astronaut's house. And a couple of months later, when we got around to doing a transcript of it, the film secretary calls me up frantic saying, "Do you know what they're talking about privately in their house while, you were in the driveway leaving?" I was like, "I don't know." She said, "They're talking about calling the CIA to have you murdered." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's funny." She said, "No, Bart, they're talking about calling the CIA to have you murdered." I'm like, "Yeah, that's funny." She says, "Bart, you're not hearing me. I'm being serious. They're talking about calling the CIA to have you killed," which we have it right there at the end of the film, Astronauts Gone Wild. You can watch it for free at Sibrel.com. Do you want to call the CIA and have them whacked? Now, if they really went to the moon, and I'm some silly person who thinks it was done in a TV studio, why would they care? Why would the CIA care? But if I have this footage that made him turn beet red, that proves they're faking being halfway to the moon, then maybe the CIA would have to be involved, because this list of 15 people, some of those people were CIA agents and NSA agents. And so what can you do, right? That's indirect proof they faked it, because why would the CIA have to kill somebody who thinks it was done in a TV studio if they really went? Why would they care?
Yep.
We're passengers. We're guys going on a flight. We're passengers. We're
guys going on a flight. Guys going on a flight.